This year has witnessed the resolution of several chilling cold cases that had long remained unsolved. Let's have a look at the disturbing cold cases that were solved this year.
Right now at 6 o'clock, an I-Team exclusive, a cold case closed with 2 arrests here in Jacksonville in the mysterious death more than a decade ago of this little girl in central Alabama. This week,
Amore Wiggins. On January 28, 2012, a woman named Yvonne Johnson was taking care of her yard in the Brookhaven Trailer Park in Opelika, Alabama, when she found a human head. Yvonne was scared and ran away from the area before she called the cops. It did not take long for the police to get there, and when they searched the area, they found more things lying around. There was also human hair and a pink long-sleeved shirt with heart buttons and frills. Later it was found that the skull belonged to an African-American girl between the ages of 4 and 7. It is very likely that the shirt also belonged to her. Medical experts who looked at the girl's skull said she was malnourished and had a visible defect in her left eye, but they do not know if the defect was normal or if it was caused by an injury or abuse. Officers found some of the child's bones on her arms, legs, shoulders, and ribs. They also found some of the child's clothes. There were a lot of broken bones, and 15 of them were caused by blunt force injuries. Medical officials thought that the child had been dead for a long time before they found the body. No matter how much the police looked into it, they could not figure out who the child was. There were no reports of missing people in the area that fit the details found, and looking through school and birth records did not help either. For now, people have been calling her Opelika Jane Doe. In 2016, for years after the crime, police finally had a good lead. In September 2016, a teacher at a summer Bible school found out about the girl who had died in 2012 and gave some pictures of a child who had gone to the Bible school in 2011. At the time, this girl was between 4 and 5 years old. It took about 10 minutes to get to the church from where Opelika Jane Doe was found. When the cops asked the teacher for more information, they found out that the girl had dirty clothes, messy hair, and a bad smell when she came to school. She also had trouble talking to the other kids, so she kept to herself and was pretty quiet. To the cops' disappointment, there was no official list of the kids who went to the school, and the teacher could not remember her name. So, detectives were once again kind of stuck. But now that they knew more, the police thought that the girl came from a bad home with cruel parents or guardians who may have had something to do with her death. In 2022, the Opelika police force hired an advanced forensic sequencing lab. They were able to use the remains of Jane Doe to make a more detailed gene profile to study. Also, the cops asked for help from other investigators, such as a woman named Barbara Ray Venter, who is an expert in genetics and helped them find the Golden State Killer. With this new information, investigators were able to find out that Opelika Jane Doe was a girl called Amore Wiggins. Officers were able to find out who she was and who her parents were. The man's name was LAMAR VICKERSTAFF, and he was in the Navy at the time. Lamar's job was to be the chief engine man, but it would be several months before cops could talk to Lamar. He was not very helpful when they finally did get a chance to talk to him. After hours of questioning Lamar and getting nowhere, the cops gave up because it was clear that he would not tell them anything about his daughter. The cops then tried to talk to Lamar's wife Ruth, whom he had married in May 2006. Ruth told the police that she was not the girl's original mother and that she had no idea who the girl's real mother might be. Since there were no more people to talk to, the cops had to wait while Dr. Barbara Ray Venter kept trying to find a match for Amore Wiggins' DNA, which was not Lamar's. After some time, Barbara was able to find several matches, which she then narrowed down to a 37-year-old woman called Sherry Wiggins who lived in Maryland. When the police visited Sherry in December 2022, they discovered that she gave birth to Amore on January 1, 2006. Ruth was Lamar's new wife and she lied about not knowing Amore. In 2009, Lamar and Ruth obtained legal and physical custody of Amore after Sherry provided the necessary paperwork granting them permission. These papers also showed that Sherry had been paying child support every month since 2009. Sherry lost control of her daughter, and she was also not allowed to see her daughter. Sherry went back to court several times to try to change the custody rules so that she could at least see her daughter, but those changes were never accepted. Sherry did not know her daughter was lost until that very moment. and she had never been to the Opelika area before. The police called the school boards in several nearby states and found that LAMAR and RUTH had never put Amore in any of the schools. The police also found out that the two had never told anyone that Amore was missing. On January 17, 2023, the police arrested LAMAR and RUTH when an officer pulled over RUTH for speeding. LAMAR was charged with felony murder, and RUTH was arrested for not telling anyone that her child was missing. LAMAR said in court in March 2023 that he was not to blame for Amore's injuries before she died and that he only lost her while going from Virginia to Alabama. Sharon Anschutz. In 2000, a woman named Sharon Anschutz was shot and killed in Greenville County, South Carolina. This happened more than 20 years ago. Sharon was a wife and a mother of 4 children. She worked at John Butler Dry Cleaners and took care of her family. On June 5, 2000, a customer went to the dry cleaner to pick up his clothes in the afternoon, but he noticed that the place was very quiet. He waited for a worker to come to the front to help him, but when no one did after a few minutes, he went to look for help himself. But as he walked past the counter, he saw a dead body on the floor with blood slowly spreading out from it. He called the cops right away, and they and an ambulance were there in minutes. But sadly, too much time had gone by, and Sharon was no longer there. The police started their investigation right away and saw that the cash register was left open and all of its money was gone. After talking to people in nearby stores and on the street, the cops were at a bit of a loss because no one remembered anything out of the ordinary before Sharon's death. During this time, Sharon's family was also talking about taking her body back to Michigan, where she grew up, so that all of her family could attend a special funeral service. After the police ran out of possible suspects, it was only natural that the case went cold. In the year 2022, Sheriff Hobart Lewis was able to take over Sharon's case. The first thing Hobart did was reanalyze the fingerprints that were taken from the cash register, but this time he used the most up-to-date technology. After a few weeks, the team found that all but one of the prints belonged to people who worked at the dry cleaners. Then, Hobart told his team to go back and talk to all of the old witnesses and shop owners, as well as some new people he thought might know something useful. Hobart's main goal was to try to find out who the strange man was so he could match his fingerprints to those on the cash register. One of the new people they talked to suggested a man named Roger Keith Hudgins, which was a lucky break. Roger was a husband and father who served in the Air Force and had never done anything wrong. When the cops went to talk to these new witnesses, they said that Roger often did odd jobs for locals and sometimes took the trash out for the dry cleaning business. But, like some of the other cases we talked about, Roger was already dead when the cops thought he was the culprit. Roger died in 2008 of natural causes. When he killed Sharon, he would have been in his mid-40s. Police think that Roger's original plan was to rob the dry cleaners on one of the days he had to take out the trash. But the job went wrong, so he chose to shoot Sharon in the back. In January 2023, detectives confirmed that Roger was the person who shot and killed Sharon. Carol Joyce Deleon. On May 28, 1981, Carol graduated from Thomas Edison High School in San Antonio. A few days later, on the night of June 3, 1981, she was sadly killed. People think that she went to a bar with a few friends. Not much is known about what happened to Carol that night, but it was the last time anyone saw her living. On June 4, around 7:30 a.m., Carol's naked body was found along Interstate 35 near a rest stop. Her clothes were pulled up behind her head, and she was shot 6 times in the head. Medical officials also said that the victim's neck was very badly bruised. And, as is often the case in these situations, there were almost no clues for the police to follow. So, they looked under Carol's fingernails to see if she had kept any alien DNA from fighting back. And when Carol's body was first found, the cops could not figure out who she was. Investigators looked at her fingerprints and tried to find any reports of lost people in the area, but there were none. Carol was buried in New Braunfels as a person named Jane Doe. The police did not find out that she was Carol Deleon until around 2009 or 2010. Police released photos of Carol. At first, the girl's family did not think it was likely that she was Carol, but they still called the cops to see if they could help. The police then asked Carol's family to give them DNA samples. Those samples were checked, and Carol's DNA was found to match them. At one point in the investigation, Henry Lee Lucas admitted to killing Carol. He is known as a serial killer and has killed at least 3 people. Lucas was known for making false confessions. He had lied about more than 250 murders. So, detectives did not take him too seriously because of that. In 2010, almost 30 years after the crime, a new DNA lab was hired to help with the probe. Using the DNA taken from Carol's fingernails all those years ago, they were able to make a DNA sample. This report showed that the criminal was a man. But the team could not figure out who it belonged to, and it took about a decade before the case made any big steps forward. In 2020, the DNA was put through a second genealogy test, which led to the discovery of 3 possible culprits. A man named Larry Allen West was one of the 3. In 2021, police went to Larry's workplace with an arrest warrant and asked for a sample of his DNA to test. Larry did not say no, which was very surprising. After the test, his DNA was matched to the description, and he was taken to Behar County Jail with a $125,000 bond. When asked, Larry said that he liked to pick up younger women at bars near where Carol was found. But he also said that he had nothing to do with Carol's death and had never even seen the girl before. The police also talked to Larry's old friends and ex-wives, who all said he was a very violent guy. Larry's first wife told the cops that it was like stepping into hell when she married him. She was only married to Larry for about 30 days before she left, but she said that during that time, Larry beat her and raped her many times. After hearing about this DNA match and what Larry was like as a person, Carol's family was glad to see that someone was finally going to jail for this crime. Sandra, who was Carol's sister, conveyed her hope, stating that it was an opportunity for the person involved to find inner peace and bring solace to the rest of the family before departing this world. Sandra expressed confidence that justice would ultimately be served in one way or another. At the time of recording the script, Larry had already been released from jail after paying bail. But he will be back in court this month for a pre-trial hearing, and he is still sure that he had nothing to do with the murder as of right now. Thanks for watching.